What is up, guys? Welcome to Real Talk, the unedited, scripted, unfiltered show where I sit down with a gaming personality and talk about anything and everything. I'm JP McDaniel, and today I'm speaking with one of the most polarizing people within the streaming community, Stephen Bunnell, aka Destiny. Destiny rose to fame in the early days of Starcraft 2 with his wild yet hilarious antics on his stream and quickly became one of the most popular streamers literally overnight. His personality is hit or miss with the majority of the community, and his fans are nothing but diehard. Steven, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going, Steven? How's your day today? I know you're getting ready to leave for Home Story Cup tomorrow, so I thank you for doing the show tonight. But are you all packed and ready to go, excited for the Home Story Cup?
Yeah, it should be fun.
Sweet, sweet. All right, well, let's. I got a simple question for you just to start things off with. Did you ever think that, you know, when you started the streaming thing, that not that you'd be on a show called Real Talk, but that you'd be making the money that you do right now, being a full-time streamer and living off the fact that just people watch you play video games?
Yeah, that's why I quit college, dude. No. I never, I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody in this position would ever have thought that it would have happened, so.
All right, well, short answer. Let's talk about your childhood, Steven. I know you're very excited to do this, so let's just let's get it over with. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and I grew up pretty much my entire life there too. Until I was like 22 years old, I'd never moved from there.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Lots of brothers and sisters. My parents were both divorced a couple times before they met each other, so I've got, you know, tons of siblings. Like 3 brothers and 3 sisters.
Are they all
2 brothers,
older or
3
younger
sisters.
than you, or?
Most of them are older. The one little sister I have that is like shares parents with me is younger than me.
Do you get along with any of them? Are there ones that you don't get along with as well?
No, I mean I'm friendly with all of them. They all live in like different states, so we don't talk very much, and I'm not really a big family person, so I like all of them, and I think they like me. So.
What did your parents do for work growing up, and do they still do the same?
My parents were both in the Air Force. That's where they met each other, and eventually my mom quit the Air Force and she started doing like a family home daycare, which is where she made a lot of money raising me and my sister. And then my dad kind of helped her with that, and then he did his own stuff too.
Gotcha. Now, did you enjoy school growing up?
Yeah, school was cool.
Did you play any sports in it? What would you kind of classify yourself if you had to pick like one of the main archetypes of growing up?
I guess video game nerd. I mean, I did band, but I wouldn't call myself a band geek because I didn't hang out with a lot of those kids, like only Kyle, and then another friend in school. But yeah, I mean, mostly I just played a lot of video games in school. That's pretty much the biggest thing I did.
You mentioned Kyle, so you guys grew up together. Is that how that relationship kind of started?
Yeah, Kyle went to the same school as me since we were in 1st grade, and then I think I met Kyle in 5th grade, and he introduced me to Starcraft there.
Did you play any sports at all whatsoever while you were in school?
Unless cross country counts, no.
I guess that counts. I mean, you ran.
Yeah.
Were you good at track?
Not really. I mean, I could run. I didn't like break any records or anything. It was okay.
Did you go on to college? You mentioned at the beginning of the show that you dropped out. So what was kind of the reason for that in your words?
It's just a lot of... It's kind of complicated. I guess the simple answer is I dropped out of school for work. I was working a lot at the time, maybe 50, 60 hours a week, but I had a really good job that I was working at. So I didn't necessarily mind postponing school a little bit to build a career that I saw as a little bit more stable than what my degree would have gotten me. The degree I was working for was a degree in music performance, which doesn't really get you like any jobs. Like you can't apply to a band and be like, I have a music degree, like take me in, you know. And the career that I was building at the casino at the time was pretty solid. Like I was getting 15 an hour, you know, with no degree, and I was kind of working my way up management. So,
what instrument did you play, and how good at it were you?
I played the alto saxophone. I was okay. I was just a college kid who played. Better than kids in grade school, not as good as professionals. I don't know. It's really hard to say like how good are you.
Do you still play actively, or when was the last time you played?
I haven't played about a year or 2 or 3. I don't know. It's been a long time. I haven't really lived in any environments that have let me play. You know, like if I live in an apartment or like the room of somebody's house, you can't really practice. And if you don't really practice, you can't really play.
Do you miss it at all?
Yeah, definitely. It was awesome.
Did you have any like inspirations when it came to your musical taste and whatnot?
I was watching when I was growing up. I watched a lot of, because of the way that the time zones fell or whatever. Like every time I'd come home from school, the thing on Cartoon Network was Toonami,
Awesome.
and so I watched a lot of whatever was on Toonami. If it was like Dragon Ball Z or Gundam Wing, and eventually I picked up on Cowboy Bebop, and I heard that there was a song "Goodnight Julia" or whatever that played in one of those scenes, and I thought it sounded really cool. And the song kind of solos a saxophone. And so I chose saxophone from there, and then going into high school, I decided I wanted to play sax, and I started playing sax.
Interesting. Toonami was your musical inspiration. That was probably not the answer a lot of people were guessing it would be. But before we get into kind of gaming and streaming, which of course is what you're here for, I do want to spend some more time talking about your personal life. You have a son, Nathan. How old were you when he was born?
22. He was born March 11th of last year, so I guess 22.
How did Nathan and kind of everything involved with having a kid affect you? And is it for the better? Is it for the worse? Do you think you'd be where you are right now? Do you think you'd be further along? Just what was that whole process like for you, kind of looking back?
Again, there's so much complicated stuff that goes on over that. I guess the simple version is me and the mother at the time were kind of in the process of breaking up, and then for whatever stupid reason, a big accident, and she ended up getting pregnant. It was actually really, really, really bad at the time. Like financially, I was like destroyed. She was not doing too well. There's like a whole set of circumstances that like completely destroyed us financially up to that point. So it was definitely not something we were ready for, especially since we were both in the process of breaking up too. So I mean that was really rough. But I mean around the time that she was pregnant is when I started to get into the whole streaming thing. So I kind of really lucked out in the way that the times coincided there. And then I mean after having him, I mean, he's an awesome dude. Obviously, having a child puts you really far back financially, but I definitely wouldn't trade him for whatever money I could have now. He's probably my favorite person in the world.
Do you not shield, but do you kind of keep him away from basically the whole streaming aspect? A little bit fearful of what some of the community members would not do, but just how they would perceive you or anything? Or are you shy about that at all?
No, definitely not. I mean, things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's perfect. I would never claim to be perfect. And it's definitely nothing I would hide. I'm not embarrassed about him. Like I said, like he's easily my favorite person in the entire world. I love my son to death. I mean, if people want to talk shit or whatever, I mean, that's fine. I mean, most of the people talking shit are probably 14 and they've never seen a girl anyway. So I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much. People that talk shit about me have never really bothered me that much.
Do you get to see him often, or do you wish it was more frequent as well?
I don't. Unfortunately, I don't get along with the mother too much, or I guess we don't get along with each other. I mean, there's issues on both sides. I used to live. She lives in my house with my son, or our house, I guess I should say, with my son. And then I used to live a few blocks away so that I could still visit him every day. But the conflict it was just too much. So eventually, I had to move. Kind of states away, which sucks, but. Hopefully, I'm moving to Poland soon for 3 months, and I'm taking Rachel and the baby with me because being away from him is really hard. So hopefully, I get to see him more when we go over to Poland.
Gotcha. Now, kind of moving on forward to talking about some of these jobs. I've heard that you've worked some pretty odd jobs so far in your life. Can you kind of list those off and mention some of your favorites, some of your least favorites?
My work history isn't that impressive. I mean, I did, when I was in school, I did like the work study program, which is just like janitorial stuff, to help pay for high school. After I got out of school, my first job was at McDonald's, which was fun, I guess, for 7 or 8 months. While I was working at McDonald's, I had I had kind of like a pain in the ass customer. But like I said, I don't really care if people freak out. So I dealt with a customer fine, and then one of the people in line behind him was actually one of the managers that worked at a casino nearby. So she suggested me to go to the casino. So after working at McDonald's, I went to the casino. I worked in like food service there, kind of like a waiter kind of person, and eventually I moved up into kind of like shift managing. And then I did that for about 2 or 3 years. Stuff happened there, and eventually I got fired from that job for some crazy stupid stuff. And then
can you talk about that at all, or do you not want to?
It sounds stupid to say, everybody always says it, but the manager didn't like me. Like, she really didn't like me. There was a basically, okay, so basically the story is there was a problem with a girl who was calling out from work. We have a point system. The casino uses a rolling point system where you get 10 call outs in a year. After a year from your previous call out, the point drops off, so you can call it 10 times in a year in a rolling calendar period, basically. This girl was calling out and she was at 9 points, which means that her next call out would mean that she's fired. When I came into trade shifts with the day manager had informed me that she called out for a night shift. And I asked the day manager, like, did you tell her that she's going to be fired? And she said, well, no, I didn't know that she was at 9 points. So, when we were kind of trading shifts, I called the manager of the restaurant, who's Pam, and I asked her, I was like, hey, like, this girl called out. Like, what do you want me to tell her? Like, can she use like a FMLA, which is like family medical leave of absence, which can help you get by, with certain call-outs? And she was like, no, she absolutely cannot. Don't tell her that she's going to get fired, but just tell her that she'll be pointed. To go back a little bit, I remember when I called her, the first thing she said when I told her she called out was yes, because she really hates this girl. I hated that manager, but whatever. So eventually I talked to, I called the girl and I told her, like, hey, if you come in for 2 hours, like, I can cut you as early as possible. I'll just keep you on the register. Apparently she like sprained her ankle or something. So I offered to let her come in, and cut her early so that she wouldn't lose her job. And eventually, I guess a whole bunch of people started texting her from the casino saying, hey, you're going to get fired, blah, 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 blah. And she was kind of freaking out about that. And then 2 days later, I got a call. I worked the night shift. So 2 days later, I get a call waking me up like 4 hours early from Pam, the manager, telling me she wanted to come in 2 hours early. So I come in 2 hours early, and she tells me that since I told the employee that she was going to get fired, she was going to fire me for like overruling her or whatever. And I lost my job at the casino, which was after I dropped school for that job too. So that sucked hard. After I lost that job, I never wanted to work again because I'm like, I might be an asshole or whatever, but like I'm the nicest person in real life, and I'm really professional when it comes to dealing with like adults and everything. Like I can socialize with anybody, just because I'm not an idiot. Even if you think I am because you watch my stream or whatever. So like I don't get fired from jobs. It's just not something that happens to me. I'm not like a punk that like just works because his parents want to keep him busy. Like I have bills and shit to pay, and I'd already bought a house and everything. So kind of lucky. Me and Kyle got into the Starcraft 2 beta at about the same time I got fired. I cashed out my 401k from the casino that I was saving, and I was able to live off of that for like 4 or 5 months. Once that money started to dry up, and I started to go job hunting again, I got referred to, my uncle referred me to a guy that like worked at a carpet cleaning place, and then I did manual labor there for about a year, cleaning carpets, which was not fun. It's definitely the hardest work of my entire life. Towards the end of that job, that's when I started to get paid streaming, and then I started to realize, I remember my first paycheck from Justin TV was like $200, and I started to crunch a whole bunch of numbers, and I realized that if I were to stream full time, I could probably make about as much money as I could cleaning carpets, not to mention the fact that the work is way less backbreaking, and I'm not as prone to injury doing that. So once I realized I could make more money playing games as opposed to cleaning carpets, I quit that job. I told him that Rachel was going to deliver, like 3 weeks early, and I just quit and started playing video games.
Well, let's kind of backtrack here. When and what was the first video game you played? Did you play a lot of them growing up? You said you were a video gamer in school, so what was kind of the first one that you played?
Man, I played so many games. I remember playing the Mario. What was it like? What was the original Mario on Game Boy? There was like the swimming level, and there was like the spooky music, but it was like the graphics were like there was no color. Like you couldn't even call it black and white. Like it was just like the grayscale, or not even grayscale. It was just like I don't even know how to describe it, but like the old Game Boy Mario was like the first game I played. I also played the Contra games on the huge Game Boy. And then I moved up to the Sega games, and then I think the first like major achievement that I had playing games was when I played and beat the Final Fantasy VII. That was pretty epic for me as a kid. I think that game took me like 2 or 3 months to beat, just playing in my free time after school. From there, like I played a whole bunch of console games, older console games like Phantasy Star, Streets of Rage, Battletoads, the Street Fighter games, I don't know, all sorts of stuff. I got into RuneScape, an online MMORPG in school. It's when I first discovered griefing, which was a lot of fun. Before RuneScape, I guess I should say I played, there are these things called MUDs, multi-user dimensions. I remember my parents first got a computer, like a decent computer. It was like back in the year 2000. It was the kick-ass Pentium 4. It was like 1 gigahertz processor. It was insane. And the first thing I did was I got on the internet and I started looking at Gundam Wing games, because Gundam Wing was what was on Toonami when I got home. I want to play games with giant robots, and I remember finding MUDs in that search, and I remember playing MUDs for like 3 or 4 months. And I remember I kept asking people, like, how do you turn the graphics on, or how can you like see anything, until I finally realized it was just a text-based game. It's probably where a lot of my typing speed comes from, because when I first started playing MUDs, I didn't actually know you could get like MUD clients, so I played MUDs in Telnet, and you have to type everything out longhand and stuff. It was pretty funny.
If you could pick a favorite, kind of as a child growing up, would that be easy for you to do, or a top 3, top 5, or anything like that?
For video games?
Yeah, just something that when someone mentions like video games, what's the first one that pops in your head right now?
Easily Final Fantasy VII. Just the scope of the game, like it was a really huge game at the time. For me personally, it did a lot in terms of like making me look at video games like a little bit more seriously. The story was insane. Like, spoiler alert if you haven't played it, like the concept of a main character dying is something that I'd never been exposed to in any area of my life, in film, books, or anything, up until that point. You know, so like when Aerith died on that game, like it was kind of a big like holy shit. That game had a huge effect on me. That and the Metal Gear Solid games are definitely like my top 2 franchise kind of things. The Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3, I like so highly recommend if you've never played a game. So awesome. I would recommend Metal Gear Solid 4, but I never bought a PlayStation 3, so I haven't actually played that one.
Now, kind of moving along to streaming, did you have any, not inspirations, but someone that you saw streaming and you were like, I could do that. I could be this person on the other side of the screen right now, kind of showing everything to all these people and be really good at it. Was there anyone like that when you first saw Justin TV?
I don't think so. Basically, when I started playing games, like I've always, in my life, like I've always been kind of a comical person. Like I like to make people laugh, and I'm fairly witty, you know, without trying to sound too full of myself or too arrogant or whatever. Like I'm a pretty witty person, and I'm usually good at getting laughs from all sorts of people. And I've always had a really good ability to socialize with different people, regardless of your background or what you're into or, you know, whatnot, just because of all the different kind of areas in my life I'd been in before. So I thought, like, I've always had fun with friends playing games, and usually most people that see me play games thought that it was kind of interesting because I took it really seriously. So I thought that just, you know, streaming games and giving other people a window into that, they probably find a lot of, you know, common ground with the friends that I play with, and then it's pretty entertaining to watch me play games. And that's kind of where I started that whole thing. I guess started streaming. That was where my inspiration for that came from.
Now, you said that you and Kyle both played the beta of Starcraft 2. When did you kind of start thinking, hey, I could play this at a professional level? When were you finally motivated to, I guess, take it to that next level?
I played it a lot. Like I said, like me getting fired from the casino pretty much perfectly coincided with me having access to the StarCraft 2 beta, so I played the game a lot. The first semi-professional guy that I ever played and beat was like LZ Gamer on the ladder. And I remember after I beat him, I remember thinking like, hey, like this is kind of cool. Like these guys aren't necessarily too out of reach for me. And then from there, like it just kept playing. I don't think I've ever had a moment where like I've been like, oh, like I'm going like pro, like right now. I've always just kind of played a lot, and my results have always been kind of like a little bit all over the place. And I've kind of always focused more on the streaming side of things and the entertainment side of things rather than the results and practice regimen side of things.
Would you say that, kind of comparing the time where you first started playing StarCraft 2 to now, that you are less motivated, more motivated? Do you feel like the game is not worth your time in a sense, whereas you think that you can't reach that gap that kind of the pro players have put between where you're at right now and where the best of the best are?
I think the gap is definitely easily attainable, especially in the foreigner scene. Catching up to the Koreans might be hard, but hopefully after playing a lot in Poland, I should be able to bridge that gap, or at least I'd hope to. Yeah. What was the other part of that question?
Well,
Sorry.
just in general right now with StarCraft 2, what do you think about the game?
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it in terms of being a strategy game, but I'm super competitive and I've already sunk a lot of time into it, so I don't want to just like abandon it. I feel really bad just kind of leaving the game. That being said, I don't know. There are some aspects of the game that I'm not too happy about, but I mean, it's, I don't know, suck it up, deal with it, play the game.
You play a lot of other games on your stream. Is that kind of the happenings of you disliking StarCraft 2, or do you just have gamer ADD?
When League of Legends came out, the competitive scene for that was kind of exploding at the time, and it just seemed like a fun game. Like, I've always been, I don't want to say ADD with games, but I like to play other games too, and playing Starcraft 2 for a long time, sometimes it's nice to take a break and just play another game. And I figured if I was going to play another game, I might as well focus it on one other game instead of just doing a whole bunch of different ones. So I kind of focused on League of Legends for a little bit, but then I didn't really follow through with that too much. And I guess I just kind of get a little scatterbrained. I've played a lot of different games, but my main focus has always been StarCraft 2.
Now, your critics, probably a better word, haters, like, they're always going to cite that you've never done well in a major tournament. That's always kind of the one thing that people will, well, it's the first thing that people always criticize you about. You still garner probably one of the bigger audiences out there, if not one of the biggest, top 5 for sure when it comes to all the other pros. What do you think it is about your streaming, your gameplay that makes people so interested in what you do? And what do you provide that really no one else does?
I mean, there are a lot of little things to do with the stream. Like, I guess, taste of music and, stream quality and the raw amount of hours I stream, which is actually important. But I think the personality thing is pretty unarguably at this point probably the biggest factor and the reason why people still watch me.
Do you think that a lot of other programmers out there don't need to rely on their personality just because they're so good at the game, or should, kind of as a spectator of eSport yourself, do you think that a lot of programmers should try to develop a personality and try to have people watch them because of that, not just because of their gameplay?
I mean, that's such a, it's people posit that question all the time, and they try to make it sound like it's really easy. Like, do you want to do this, or do you want to be a pro gamer, or do you want to just be funny and jerk off on stream and everybody funny? But I mean, it's not really that simple. Like, it depends on what your goals in life are. I have a lot of bills to pay. I've got a child to support. I don't have time to not stream anymore and just grind out a bunch of games to try to become like a pro gamer. The money that I make streaming is a lot more steady than the money most 99.99% of programmers make that are better than me. Based on tournament results. So there's absolutely no reason for me to leave the business model that I have established to try to chase something that may or may not ever happen for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things, you've been on a lot of teams. I'm speaking directly at Complexity and Quantic. Starting with Complexity, can you talk about the process first off of just kind of joining them and how that all went down and your thoughts on the matter at first?
This is something that I'm sincerely sorry for, and I don't like the way that everything went down. It's definitely a mistake that I made. This is something that I would try to defend. The rationale of the explanation behind it is Root was being absolved into Complexity, and the decisions that were being made were happening almost overnight, very, very, very quickly. And eventually it came to the point where I got a message on Skype, hey, we need you to look over that Complexity contract tonight. If you don't sign it, Root's not going to be absorbed into Complexity. And I didn't want to be the sole reason that everybody else on the team got screwed and all of a sudden wound up teamless because I had problems with the contract or whatever. So I kind of begrudgingly signed it, which was probably not a good idea. I could have negotiated the situation better or come out of that a little bit better than that. But I ended up begrudgingly signing it. And then I went over it in more detail over the next couple of days, and I talked to Jason Lake about it. Jason Lake is a cool dude, but we had some very, very, very different ideas of what professionalism and whatnot meant. So we kind of parted ways on that, and eventually I decided to leave due to our differences, and then they had their little re-release and blah, 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 and all that good stuff.
Was that situation, in your opinion, kind of over-dramatized? Was it, to me, what you just described didn't seem like that big of a deal, but when it first came out...
Nothing is that big of a deal. It's just common business practices. You always want to save face, and to have somebody say he left because he didn't agree with some of the terms of the contract is a lot less saving face than he left because he wasn't willing to fulfill his part of the contract. When you say that, it's really easy to demonize the person leaving, and it makes you look a little bit better, which is what I think. I think that's a nasty position to take, but that's the position that Complexity kind of took when I left. So that kind of fed into the drama a little bit. It led a lot of people to speculate that I did horrible stuff or whatever, and then I got kicked off because I didn't want to fulfill my contract or whatnot. But I didn't actually violate any parts of the contract at all while I was on Complexity. I just didn't agree with it, and I kind of wanted out of it.
Now, you went on after Complexity to eventually join Quantic Gaming. Before we talk about kind of how that unfolded, you spent some time over in Korea when you were with Quantic. How was that, and what was that experience like?
It was really frustrating with some parts of it. It was really awesome with other parts. I I got to meet and hang out with Naniwa for quite a while. Naniwa is actually like really bad with dealing with people. Like, I don't think he realizes some of the things that he says and how they affect people, but he's a really, really, really cool guy to hang out with. I think that Nanny was like generally a really nice person. Like, he had no problem hanging out with me, and considering like where I'm coming from, like I'm relatively a no-name player in terms of results, and I kind of symbolize something that Nanny doesn't like, and that kind of a slacker person that just makes money because he streams. But regardless of that, you know, like I was friendly towards Nanny, he was friendly towards me. We got along pretty well. So I mean, that aspect of the trip was really cool, getting to see that he's not like a major douchebag to everybody all the time. Being in an environment where I could play that much was really cool. I don't know how many people could seriously sit down in front of a computer and play, you know, like 8 to 10 hours every single day. I think I can. I think I'm one of those people. And being in Korea, I was actually able to do that for like 2.5, 3 weeks straight. So that was a lot of fun. And then just being in Korea and getting to see kind of the culture was interesting too.
Would you ever go back?
Probably not. The only reason being away from Nathan is really hard, and that kind of restricts where I can or cannot go in a lot of different areas of my life. Every time that I've spent a significant amount of time away from him, it's really hard. Otherwise, like I would have stayed with Cats for a lot longer if it wasn't for that. And I probably wouldn't be going to Poland if it wasn't for the opportunity to be with him for 3 months. So I don't know if I could ever work out a situation where me and him could go to Poland, or not Poland, me and him, and Rachel would have to come too, would have to go to Korea.
Well, I want to talk about the Quantic gaming situation, and I want to say that you stated, to read it directly, so I don't misquote you, there were a few options on the table when we were discussing things, but all of the options left Quantic in a really rough position. Can you talk about that a little more and then explain what those rough positions were at all?
So pretty much the way that things went down, okay, first of all, a lot of people say that I got kicked off the team, and that was kind of like my way of saving face. Okay, to reiterate, I really don't care what most people think about me. If I get kicked off something, like I'll gladly say it. Like, it doesn't bother me that much. Quantic, the guys on Quantic were really nice. Mark is a really nice person. And he said that it would probably be possible for the team to get by if I were to stay on, but it kind of seemed like me staying on the team would mean that Razor was going to either completely or sever the majority of like the financial ties they had with the team. At that point, I kind of felt like I would be more of a liability than an asset to the team, and I don't want to be somewhere where I feel like I'm kind of bringing everyone else down around me. I didn't have that feeling up to that point. I mean, obviously my numbers and everything are really good for viewership and, you know, getting a sponsorship deck built out and everything. But if I would stay there and people weren't being paid or people weren't being sent to places because I stayed there, like I would feel really bad for that. So we kind of all talked about it, and I mean, it was pretty much in the best interest of everybody, I think, for me to part ways with the team.
So once again, it feels like the community just made drama where there really wasn't any. Is that what you?
No, I mean, the community's not at fault at all. If you don't like the way that things are going, I think emailing sponsors is a great way to get things done. Obviously, it's the quickest way to produce results. If you want to fault anybody for the way that things went down, I guess the fault would lie with Razor and the way that they dealt with things. I mean, if that's where you really want to go, like if you're unhappy with the way that an organization deals with problems, I mean, you can't really blame the people that bring problems up to you. You have to look at the organization itself, in my opinion.
All right. And now you're with Root. Root Gaming kind of reformed. How did that revival come about? Was it basically just Skype, or was Cats messaging on Skype like, hey, do you want to bring Root back? Or how did that really start?
I mean, Cats had been talking about it for a while, and he'd always wanted to do it. So, I mean, it just, as soon as their contract ended with Complexity, it was just something that pretty much had to happen, you know. As soon as their contract ended with Complexity, they just reformed Root, something that he'd always wanted to do. And he's taking it a lot more seriously this time around in terms of getting people for a website together, getting people for sponsorships together, and all that good stuff.
Are you happy with the team, basically?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think that one of the early criticisms, and I think just to be completely honest, I think I was one of the people that said this directly to a lot of the Root guys, is that it's very, very hard to find sponsors yourselves and kind of get everything situated for a team. Do you think that Root could be that team that is run by someone like Cats, who is also a player?
No, definitely not. He has other people behind the scenes working on stuff like that. The trials and tribulations that one has to go through to proving your worth to sponsors and procuring sponsorships and everything, it's just way too much responsibility to have, while also simultaneously trying to play at a professional level too. That's impossible. That being said, Katz is having a large hand and working with a lot of it, but he's also got other people behind the scenes that he has kind of delegated responsibility to also that are trying to work on that as well.
Gotcha. Root was one of those teams back in the beta of StarCraft 2 that really, that was probably one of the stronger points for the team. With Heart of the Swarm coming out here pretty soon, both as a game and also as a beta even sooner, do you think that could be the potential kind of moment where Root can become the top Foreigner team?
I have really strong feelings about this. I don't know if I want to. If the only people that are going to dominate are going to be the people that put time into the game. It sounds kind of mean to say, but people that dominate a game really early on, I don't think that that's necessarily like a legitimate thing to be too proud of. I mean, when the game comes out and it's super new and people don't really have the game explored yet and they kind of just do crazy strategies and whatnot, like that's pretty cool. Like Kiwikaki was really well known. Like Kiwikaki used the mothership like 6 months ago and everybody said he was kind of dumb for it, and now like it's a staple and standard ZVT. Or ZVP, like everybody goes for mothership, you know, like it's completely standard. Me and Katz were using Infestors a long time ago. Just a lot of stuff. I think Koth and Luck like pioneered a couple Terran builds that are even used a little bit today. So I mean, it's kind of cool to dominate things when they first come out, but I think that the true like staple of being a successful team is to dominate long after that happens, you know? Like one of the negative criticisms given to a lot of people is there are a lot of beta superstars where there were people that were really good in the beta, but they never really practiced much, and they only like dominated the scene when other people hadn't figured the game out as much. I hope that Root doesn't go that way. It'd be cool to dominate right when Heart of the Swarm comes out, but it would suck to dominate early on and then fall off completely.
I guess that's a very, very good point. Now, you mentioned yourself that you're very sociable. You can talk with anyone, and you've met. Probably, I think, in terms of just being social, you've befriended a ton of different pro gamers, really all different types. Was there anyone that you met in person that you expected to be different than they actually were?
The only person that I've ever been really surprised about was Rhett. I don't know why, but like just as this isn't a fault of Rhett, but just his voice, he sounds like the biggest douchebag in the world. Like when you listen to Rhett talk ever, he just sounds like a douchebag. Like I don't know, like I just imagine him wearing like the Trailblazer backpack or whatever, and he's just like, I don't know, like he just comes off as like a huge douche. But like talking to him in person and like interacting with him in person, like Rhett is a really, really, really cool dude. So that's probably like been the only like, oh my god, like, you know, kind of shocking. Like they're not at all like I thought they would be.
Do you have it's always weird to say this, but do you have like a favorite person that you've met along your way through streaming and through StarCraft 2 and all that? Kind of a best friend, if it were?
The closest thing I'd have to that would definitely be Katz, I would say.
And what do you kind of associate that with? Is it just because you guys are like-minded? You get along with them so well? What would that be?
He was the first person in the StarCraft 2 scene that saw kind of potential in me and kind of helped me develop and foster a lot of the builds and whatnot that I used that I had a bit of success with early on. And he's always been kind of somebody that I can talk strategy with, and he's just like, in the beginning, after all of that, like we kind of just became friends, so we kind of stuck together, you know, throughout everything that's gone on since then.
Gotcha. Do you have any plans? I know that you lived with him for a while. After Poland, do you have any plans on either moving in with him again or being closer to him in that sense?
I can't again. I don't really want to move away from my child too much. It's just too hard being away from him, and I don't think I could take him to Peru. So.
Gotcha. So a lot of these next questions are from people that submitted questions on Reddit, but I'm just going to try to interweave them in. I wanted to state that before we went along. So, how do you feel about the way pro players are interacting with their fans on forums right now?
There's so many different trains of thought on like appropriate ways to interact with fans and blah 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 blah. I mean, I don't know. For me personally, I completely and 100% owe all of my success to the people that watch me. So I try to socialize as much as possible. Like if I'm at events, I'll never like go and hide from people unless I have like some place to be or whatever. I usually try and shake hands, sign whatever people want. I try to talk to people in my chat relatively often. Like I try to be one of the most transparent, not transparent, one of the most visible people, I guess, in the StarCraft 2 community. Like if I'm streaming and you ask a question in my chat, I'm probably going to answer it, regardless of the fact that there are 3,000 or 4,000 people watching or whatever. I don't know. I try to be as personable with as many people as possible.
He went on, the user said, do you think that they should try to be involved and approachable, or do you think that this only fans the flames of trolls who are trying to get attention from the internet celebrities?
It depends on the kind of personality you have. Like for me personally, trolls don't bother me too much, and I don't mind pissing people off. Like obviously everybody knows there are times when I go on Reddit and and I start keyboard warring, and I probably get a little bit trollish, and I don't know, like most people say, they're like, why do you even bother posting, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I like posting and I like being part of the community. It's fun. I mean, like that's the person that I am. Like before I ever got into any of this, like I'm just another person posting on a website and calling people assholes and, you know, like laughing at shit. Like it's just the person that I am. The fact that I got into pro gaming, I haven't let that like change me. It's not like, one of the things that I hate is I hate the concept of a scene where like once you attain a certain level of e-fame or whatever, like you're kind of like part of like the in-group and you don't really talk to plebeians anymore or anything. Like I've always hated that. So I'll always continue to associate and talk to people online. If people want to troll, like if you want like the Reddit accounts, like the Neo carpet cleaner and stuff like that. Like I mean, if you want to do it, it's fine. I can deal with it. Like I make enough money playing games that I can deal with people trolling me without, you know, crying about it.
Right, right. Recently, you talked about another kind of opinion that you had that sparked a lot of debate. How lazy foreigners are generally, kind of compared to Koreans, and that you admitted that you're also lazy yourself. Are you considering to toughen up your practice schedule and/or try to play more tournaments anytime soon? Is that kind of the main inspiration or goal with going over to Poland?
Yeah. When I go over to Poland, I'll be practicing hardcore. I'll come back. I'll beat the shit out of everybody. It wasn't an opinion. It's a fact. And if anybody gets butthurt over that, or in the foreigner scene, like they can go cry about their lack of results. I mean, like foreigners just don't practice. Like, even Idra said that about the EG house, you know? So if Idra is willing to say that about his own team house, you know, like how do you think the rest of the situation is? And I'm not trying to like shit talk foreigners or anything, like I'm way better than all of them, because I'm not. It's just a fact that you go to Korea and people literally play that game 8 to 10 hours a day in team houses. You've got a team house with 20 people in there who are playing 8 to 10 hours a day. They're always going to produce better results than foreigners that typically play 4 hours a day, maybe like 4 hours to 6 hours. Most foreigners would feel pretty good about that, I think. There are very few foreigners that actually practice as much as they need to.
And you, in your opinion, you think that everyone should kind of step it up in the foreigner scene if they want to be like the tip-top players?
It all depends on what your goals are. My goals are entertaining, and I mean, right now, like I want to be entertaining and have a high viewer base and whatnot. I mean, I do that fine for me. So I mean, there's not like a bunch of pressure on me to practice a whole bunch.
Right.
In terms of other people that are trying to like make it like in the scene, like as gamers, I mean, it's just not going to happen if you don't put in the hours. Like there's just nothing else to say. There's no secret. Like I love to death like QXC, and I love to death all the people that make like the big blogs. Like Koreans have this secret training, and they do like all this really good training, and like it's like no, it's just the amount of hours that you put into it. Coming from a background in music, I see that a lot. Practicing music is almost identical to practicing Starcraft 2, and that if you want to be good at music, there's no. Okay, well, I won't say there's no, but there are very few prodigy musicians that never practice and are really good at everything. People that you see that are really good at their instruments, they spent a ton of time in practice rooms, okay? Like, they didn't stand around being inspired and being gifted and blah, blah, blah. Like, they went to the practice rooms and they worked on that shit for a long time. Like, you think of, like, musicians like John Coltrane, like, spent, like, 6 to 8 hours a day practicing a saxophone. That's hard to do, man. Like, it takes a lot, you know, to maintain an embouchure blowing into an instrument for that long, but he did it, and there's a reason why those people were considered the best musicians that they were.
I think that it's a fair comparison. Now, do you yourself define success by doing things like winning events, or just by something like having such a wide and loyal fan base that you can support yourself off of just streaming and not really winning these big tournaments like a lot of other pro gamers out there?
I mean, success, there's like a lot of different ways to define success. I define success differently in different areas of my life. It just depends. Right now, I just want to make enough money to support my child, and to make sure that I'm not like getting screwed in my life for my bills or anything. And I do that well, so I mean, that's cool. In terms of actual SC2-ness, I'd like to do well at tournaments, but that's not going to happen until I get really serious about my training schedule, which probably isn't going to happen until I go to Poland. So in terms of like my popularity, I walk kind of a fine line with that. I'm really happy with the amount of money I make now, and I don't see myself needing to like whore myself out to try to make a lot more, which is one of the reasons why I'm kind of polarizing. People are like, why don't you just stop doing this, and then you'll have so many more fans? It's like, yeah, I mean, I guess I could, but I really don't need the additional money, so I'm kind of happy with where I'm at right now.
I use the term pro gamer, and as it came out of my mouth, would you even consider yourself a pro gamer in your own mind?
If anybody would have asked me, I'd probably say that. Like anybody outside of like the gaming scene, I'd probably say, yeah, I play video games professionally. It's kind of what I do. I stream it, people watch it, and that's why I make money. I mean, in the scene, if you want to start to get like really technical and semantic, I mean, I guess you could call me a pro streamer over a pro gamer. I mean, when you start to argue like semantics, like, I'm not about to disagree with anybody who says you make all your money from streaming and not playing well. Like, yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. So I mean, you can call it what you will.
This next question from a user is how do you feel that your persona that you have created for yourself in the Starcraft community, how do you feel about that? And to take it one step further, is this a persona or is this destiny? Is this what you're like on a day-to-day basis?
I'm the exact same on stream as I am off stream. It's just the person I am, like literally. I don't like brainstorm, jokes or funny things I could do on stream, like to get people to like me or to portray a personality that I think that would be more accepted than my own. I'm really big on the whole individualism thing, and I like people to kind of be their own person. So I mean, if you ask anybody, like if you ask Kyle, like, does Steven really act this way, like in real life? Like, yeah, like this is pretty much how I always act. Yeah.
All right. How hard is it to keep a positive personality or a positive kind of sense of mind when you're one of the most criticized players out there, as well as just being one of the most well-known?
It's very, very, very easy. The background that I come from gives me excellent perspective in this. Like, I literally sit on my ass and I play video games all day. It's impossible to complain. Like, I can't feel bad for myself or cry that people are making fun of me online or like, get like too worked up. Like, I literally make money playing video games. If you were to ask anyone else in any worse position in life, like if you could trade spots with me, like I guarantee you they'd say yes in a heartbeat. I think a lot of people's problems is that they get into this at a really young age and they haven't like cleaned carpets for a year. They haven't worked 80 hours a week and gotten like $1,000 paychecks bi-weekly. Like I've lived that life. Or like living out of my car for 3 weeks because like I don't have a house or something. Like I've been through a lot of stupid shit like that. So for anybody to be like, is it really hard to deal with trolls and blah 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 blah? Like no, like this is a dream. This is the easy life. This is so easy. Traveling around the world playing video games, like I can't. It's impossible to complain, I guess.
One of the other questions I got, I felt like I wasn't going to ask this, but I'm just going to throw it in. What's a question that you've always wanted to be asked in an interview that have not happened yet?
I don't know. I've been asked everything. Some stuff that.
Is there any one thing that you just want to go off and talk about?
I mean, I like talking. I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I could talk about. To give like my whole view on like language and everything is one thing, but that's been rehashed so many times. To talk about like the idea of like being a personality as opposed to being yourself. The idea between people being like visible in the community rather than like secluded and hidden like in the scene. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things I could talk about for a long time.
Should people just tune into your stream for that?
I don't know. Sometimes it's hard finding like an appropriate venue to talk about those things. Like the language thing. Like I have a really, really, really complicated view on like the whole language thing. But people only ever get like little bits and pieces when it's brought up in certain environments. So like it's really easy to get a really bad or distorted view. Same thing with like the personality thing. Like why do you act this way? Blah blah blah. Like it's really easy to get like a little personal clip of it and like, wow, this guy's an asshole, or things like that. I don't know. I've been kind of trying to post more on my website, so I don't know. See how that goes.
All right. Kind of winding down. Just a couple more questions. A rather fast episode of Real Talk here. I was thinking that this is going to be another 2 or 3 hour experience, but I don't even know if we've eclipsed the hour yet. So, what is your proudest moment in life right now, if you have one?
I don't know. For Starcraft 2, beating Bomber and Ace in that GeForce tournament was pretty cool.
What about outside of Starcraft?
I don't know. It's really hard to say. I mean, the go-to answer, I guess, as a father would be having a kid, but to be honest, it's not that hard to have a child. I guess anything having to do with Nathan, or probably anytime I see him smile or laugh when I'm messing around with him. I mean, those are pretty good moments.
Do you have like a least proudest moment, or maybe most embarrassing, or anything like that? Not like joking embarrassment, not like you were laughed at or anything, but just a moment in your life where you were like really down or really beating yourself up over something.
I mean, I have a really strict like moral and ethic guideline, and I try pretty hard to adhere to that. So I can't think of any time like I felt really scumbaggish. Maybe I should have thought about that more before this shoot. I don't know. I didn't really bully people that much in school. Maybe being mean to my little sister. I don't know. The meanest I've ever been to something in life that it's generally mean. So when the 7th Harry Potter book came out, I probably read it in like 6 or 7 hours, and she had to go to sleep because she had something to do the next morning. And I remember asking her the next day, "Have you gotten to the part in the book yet where Hermione dies?" And she wasn't able to finish the book for like weeks after that because she thought that I'd spoil like a really big part of it. That's the only like scumbaggish thing I can think of.
You dick. It's really actually not the worst thing in the world. Figured it would be worse. So, what is something that you've learned? You spoke about kind of how you've cleaned carpets, basically, is the example that you've used, and that's kind of taught you why what you do now is cakewalk. What is something that you've learned that you could either tell someone that's looking to do what you do, that maybe a fatal mistake that you made while doing this that you would tell them not to?
First of all, I get a surprising number of emails from kids that are like, "Hey, like I really want to drop out of school and do this," or like I'm ready to just quit everything and do this. Going back a little bit, like I brought up before, like I never quit everything. Some people say like he's so brave to do it. I never in my life dropped everything and went to gaming. That never happened. When I started getting into streaming professionally, it was at the moment that I realized I could make more money playing video games than I could working a conventional job. It was number crunching, and it was finances, and it was black and white. Like I have to go play video games as opposed to what I'm doing now because I know I can make more money doing it. Basically what I'm trying to say is if you're going to do a decision like that, make sure it's financially sound. Like don't be crazy. Don't like sell your house and buy a new computer and go live in an apartment to try and make it big streaming. That being said, if you're young and you want to take a year off between high school and college to like try to do video games or whatever, by all means go for it. The best time in your life to make mistakes is when you're young. A lot of people will say that you have to be perfect and be super anal and blah blah blah, you have to do this. This is like, that's bullshit. Like when you're 30 or 40 years old, like you're not going to have the same opportunities as when you're like 17, 18, 19, just out of high school. That being said, don't ruin your life, doing stupid stuff.
Gotcha. All right, well the final question I've got for you is, tomorrow you wake up, you no longer want to play games, you no longer want to stream, it's not available to you, you can't stream. What do you do for work? Do you go back to school? Do you go find another day job? What does Stephen Bonnell do?
I have no idea. I probably try to start my own business doing something with computers. I remember thinking that I wanted to do that a while ago, just because I know a fair bit, or at least more than most people do about computers, and it seems like an area that could use somebody to bring like low-cost computer services into the market, because like the current services like Geek Squad or whatever are insane ripoffs and pretty poor service. So I don't know, maybe something like that. If I can't do anything related to gaming, otherwise I'd probably try to stay in this environment just to capitalize on the image I've already built for myself.
Could you see yourself doing anything with a team or anything like that? Becoming a manager or making your own team Destiny or anything?
I mean, if I could get paid for it, yeah. It would obviously. Yeah, I mean, it would come down to the money. I can't just like, fuck everything or screw everything and just go do whatever. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, that's all I got for questions. Do you have anything you want to say here? Final words, shout outs, any things like that?
Shout out to Cloud9 Labs as always for managing my website. Thanks to Root for having me on their team, and thanks to everybody that watches me and supports me.
All right, and your Twitter, of course, and where can people watch your stream?
You can watch my stream at destinysc2.com, and then just click on live stream. My Twitter is Steven_Bonnell, Bonnell. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much, Destiny, for coming on. Coming up next on Real Talk later this week, we will have DJ Wheat on Friday, and then I believe Artosis and Tasteless are right after that. And then we will probably have some different type of guests, and I'll be able to speak about that a little bit more as the weeks progress here. So once again, thanks to Steven for coming on. Hope you guys have enjoyed Real Talk. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just click the subscribe button, which should be appearing right here. And thanks again, guys. We'll see you later. I'm JP McDaniel signing out.